It's just how some people react to people like us. My mother told me when I was around 8 years old, in response to me asking her why a strange man on the bus home from school was shouting at her. My mum wears a hijab, so she's visibly a Muslim woman, and she's been subjected to her fair share of verbal abuse since my parents moved to the UK in the early 1990s. How do you explain this to an 8-year-old who doesn't understand why the stranger has suddenly decided to hurl abuse at you on the bus? I don't remember too much else about this incident, but I do remember feeling sad, ashamed and embarrassed that this man was shouting at us to leave England and go back to where you belong, when we were simply sitting at the back of the bus. Go back to where? To Libya, a country I've never known? To Scotland, where I was born? Even as a kid, I could tell from my mother's tired and deflated eyes that this was something she'd experienced before and would likely face again in the country my parents chose to call home. This stranger probably didn't think twice about his comments and continued on with his day, but it's a situation that has stayed with me for decades, and sadly this wouldn't be the last time I came across Islamophobia. Dealing with Islamophobia whilst also trying to navigate the two cultures I was growing up with left me feeling pretty lost. My friends definitely didn't get me, and I was too nervous to talk to my parents about my confusion, as I didn't want them to think that I was rejecting our way of life. But constantly being told things about your religion, especially when it comes to women's rights, meant I started to absorb some of it and believe this Islamophobia. Would my dad force me to wear the hijab when I was older? Would I end up being forced into a marriage I didn't want? Is Islam an oppressive force for women? These were all questions I was both asking of myself and I'd had friends ask of me throughout my years at school. The feelings of unease didn't go away, they simply changed. If anything, hiding my faith or feeling ashamed of it made me feel worse. But I did hide huge parts of myself, especially growing up during a time when feminism was only becoming more mainstream. Well, a specific type of feminism anyway. I buried the feelings of unease down deep for many years and only revisited them in my early to mid-20s. Many of us who live in the West have inadvertently absorbed white feminist ideals. This is a type of feminism that believes that Muslim women can only experience oppression at the hands of Islam, ignoring other structural harms, that this oppression can be boiled down to the wearing of the veil, and that Muslim men enact a unique form of misogyny and gendered violence. We may approach topics or issues concerning Muslim women with the best intentions, but end up reinforcing damaging and harmful stereotypes instead. It's a conversation that crops up again and again, but it feels like we're just going around in circles. People express their concerns or opinions regarding an issue involving Muslim women, but in a way that's based in racism and Islamophobia, and invoking a white saviour lens is not going to help Muslim women in the slightest. It takes a lot of unlearning to get to the point where you can stop and think about how you're approaching such topics. I know it did for me. It's only now, looking back on my school days, that I can see just how widespread Islamophobic views and attitudes were, even amongst people I had called good friends, and how much I had internalised this. Peers told me that Islam was backward and a woman-hating religion. They asked how I could possibly call myself a feminist if I also practiced my faith. In fact, the vast majority of Islamophobic comments I faced were comments based in feminist ideals. In my mind, feminism and my faith became two distinctly separate entities existing on opposite sides of my sense of self. I felt as though my lived experiences of being both a Muslim and a young woman were fighting each other, as if they were competing in some sort of game of identity wars. Something didn't feel right about it all, so I decided to do my own homework.
Thank you so much. Hi everyone, how's everyone doing? Good, thank you. Thank you for that reading. So we'll get right into it. Firstly, we'll start with the title and the front of the book. So The Othered Woman, How White Feminism Harms Muslim Women. So I wanted to start, just so we're all on the same page, by asking you what is your definition of white feminism, and then we'll also move on afterwards to intersectionality, which is also a theme that's discussed a lot throughout the book.
Yeah, so white feminism, as I define it in the book, is this a mainstream kind of feminism that exists in the West. That is kind of sometimes it's called liberal feminism as well, and it's a belief that is based on the experiences of what tends to be white, middle class, cis, heterosexual women, and it's a belief that those experiences are the default, and that there's a universal kind of experience of being a woman. And so that's kind of the definition that I wanted to include in the book. But for the title, I wanted to include white feminism because I think the whiteness element is important to this feminism that I'm talking about, because I think it's the whiteness that is kind of this idea of power, and it's the default is kind of this application of, so a white womanhood is the default and is the power situation and the power structure at the top of the structure, I guess, of what the women's experiences in the West. So I wanted to include the whiteness element. I do go in, there's a chapter on that defines kind of white feminism and goes into this idea of kind of whiteness also as as a veil of innocence as well, and this idea of if you challenge someone, they can kind of fall back on this idea of kind of, innocence and tone policing and kind of all these experiences that marginalised women kind of experience at the hands of kind of white feminist structures. But yeah, no, the title has had, you know, some criticism. People don't like.
Yeah, and can you speak a bit about some of the reactions towards?
So yeah, I mean,
title?
I've had people say, you know, it's, you know, racist to say these things, and that, you know, why are you kind of causing division in kind of feminist circles and feminist theories. But I think we have, when I pitched, you know, I pitched this book in 2021, and now it's obviously 2026. And I think we've got a lot further in how we understand white feminism, and I think a lot more people know about it and kind of know what people mean when we kind of talk about it. I know it's used more in the media now, whereas back, you know, I guess like 5-6 years ago, it wasn't really a term that was used that much. So I think we have started to understand it as a concept. But I think the people that have kind of criticised me online, I think that I'm talking about white women specifically, whereas white feminism is a structure or a way of thinking, and you know, people from marginalised backgrounds can still occupy white feminist thinking. You know, like if you look at the Conservative cabinet at the moment, people like Kemi Badenoch or Priti Patel, these are people who embody kind of white feminist rhetoric, and they are trying to aspire to this position of like power and whiteness in the feminism that they embody, whilst also harming their own communities. So yeah, I kind of wanted to, which I also include in that chapter, of white feminism is a structure and can be kind of applied by anyone.
Yeah, and so in a sense it's not to be taken personally. I think sometimes people see these things and think it's a personal attack when actually it's about structures that are at play.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. And then, yeah, just on intersectionality as well, which is obviously a key theme, and just kind of, intersectional feminism and, how that kind of shows up in the book.
Intersectionality as a term has existed for, I think it's, a couple of decades now. And I guess what we mean by intersectionality is this idea of kind of looking at the women's experiences as a whole and making sure that all the different types of structural oppressions that form someone's identity are taken into account when we kind of talk about, you know, the fight for kind of equality in women's rights. Because, you know, a black woman will have a different experience to a Muslim woman, but also then, you know, I talk about it in the book, you know, black Muslim women have different experiences to, you know, Arab Muslim women, and these all are interchangeable, and they all form someone's identity and their way of thinking, and I think white feminism tends to erase that kind of in those intersections and kind of see, you know, it's very two-dimensional, like very tunnel vision way of kind of looking at feminism, as I said, like based on a default experience, whereas intersectionality kind of flips that on its head. It's like, actually, there is no default experience, and all these different intersections kind of come together and culminate in someone's identity and how they see the world.
And something I see a lot online when discussing intersectionality is some people having like negative responses to it. This idea of like the oppression Olympics, sometimes people talk about, where actually it's like you're pitting lots of different identities against each other, or some get erased. So like, what do you think needs to be done differently to allow us to really like hold the multiple identities of like individuals carefully in one? Because I do see that sometimes where it's almost like people are now avoiding kind of approaching intersectionality in that way.
I think intersectionality as a term has become like a bit of a buzzword that I think, you know, it's begun, like you can see it sometimes in like the corporate world, and businesses have started to use it for like International Women's Day. But I think they're failing to, they've taken a concept and kind of taken it out of its context and like commercialized it. And I think sometimes that's now kind of seeped into, I guess, you know, activist circles and campaigners. And I think the way intersectionality is now thought about is, it's quite superficial, and it's, you know, and it tends to be equated to representation. You know, I guess we'll talk about representation and how representation isn't just, you know, having someone have a seat at the table when the table is broken, and it doesn't fix anything. You've just kind of put someone in a situation to kind of make it appear kind of more intersectional than it is, or inclusive. So yeah, I think intersectional for me, because somebody did ask me like, oh, like, can we ever be intersectional if you can never put yourself in someone else's shoes? So for me, I think intersectionality is exercising empathy, and I think empathy is a skill that needs to kind of be exercised, and we need to keep learning and keep using it. And I think, you know, empathy I think is something that, you know, the way that the political climate is now, I think is because of this like lack of empathy and, you know, individualism, and the fact that we are all, you know, so focused on trying to all of us like get by. You know, there's a cost of living crisis, and sometimes you do just kind of put your head down, try to get on with it. But then I think that kind of does away with intersectionality. And I think for me, it's, empathy is at its core, and it's with this willingness to be open-minded, want to learn about other people's experiences, and that way then we can all kind of learn from each other. But yeah, for me, I think it is empathy is at the heart of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just going back a little bit then, I'd love to hear you talk a bit about your journey into writing. And then, was this always a dream of yours? What kind of motivated you to write? And then your experience of publishing, which, some people might know, some people might not. Like, there's a lot of challenges within the industry. So, and I know you've had a journey, so it'd be good to just have some reflections on that as well.
Yeah, so when it comes to writing, I've been doing this for 7 years, I think now. And somebody asked me the other day, like, who was your how did you get into this? Who was your inspiration? And sadly, I couldn't really think, when I was, I grew up watching like the 2000s kind of BBC News, and I didn't really see anyone that looked like me or was kind of similar to kind of who I imagined I would be like on the screen or like in the papers. But actually, I was thinking about it, and I grew up with an Al Jazeera dad. Very much, it still is. It's always on 24/7.
Has anyone seen that meme that's
like, oh my God,
my baby's not going to watch Coco Melon, the baby's going to watch Al Jazeera News?
There's so many memes about the Al Jazeera dad, but he is one of completely that stereotype. And so I grew up, I guess, around the news and politics and journalism. And, my dad's a doctor, but he has such a vested interest in, like, I guess, politics and the way the world works. And we think differently, like he sits further to the right on the spectrum and I sit further to the left, but which makes for an interesting kind of breeding ground to grow up in. Like being able to debate with someone at a young age, but in a safe and comfortable environment where you know that you'll go to bed and wake up the next day and it's fine. So I grew up with that, and my siblings aren't that interested, so it's kind of just me and him with the 6 o'clock news on, digesting and going through everything and hearing his viewpoints and him hearing mine. And so I think that's kind of where my love of politics and my interest in journalism has come from. And even though he never actually wanted me to be a journalist, he was like, "Oh, we don't have that." I was like, "Oh, okay, never mind."
Classic.
So that's where I kind of So I got into writing in the pandemic, and I used to be a commercial writer, and I would do copy for a hand dryers company, which is as exciting as it sounds. I wrote a lot about like paper towels versus hand dryers.
Great.
Which is a great writing experience.
What's the verdict?
Oh, both as bad as each other.
Oh, okay.
But I was working for Big Hand Dryer, so,
so they were industrial complex.
They were really out for the paper towel industry. But I did that for a couple of years, and then I got put on furlough. So I was like, oh, okay, this is a good chance for me to kind of delve into like freelance journalism, see if I like it, with the comfort of having, I guess, the furlough payments coming in. And like it kind of went from there, and which was great. And I did that for a few years, and then went in-house at Stylist for a few years, which was amazing. And then now I've gone freelance again. But the publishing journey of this book started in 2020, and I came up with the idea. And basically I used to write about Islamophobia, and I used to write about feminism, and I was like, oh, I would love to kind of like bring these two together and think about them not as separate entities, but as like just a group concept. So I started trying to look for a book similar to this, and I found some like academic books, and I found kind of journal articles and the odd like podcast episode and things like that, and also a lot of kind of American literature. But I wanted to have something that would speak to, I guess, the experience of like the British experience, and a more updated version that wasn't quite academic in its language. So I was like, oh, maybe I can, and I continued to look, and I couldn't really find anything. So I was like, oh, maybe I should do something. And whilst I was thinking about kind of potentially I think I even Googled how to write a book, which speaks to like how like murky the publishing industry can be. And so whilst I was in this process of thinking about it, my now agent reached out to me on Twitter, back when Twitter was actually Twitter. And she kind of just asked me, she's like, oh, I've been following your work for a while, and I'd love to have a meeting and talk about if you have a book idea. And I was like, wow, God does really work in mysterious ways, because I was thinking about it now, you've kind of reached out. So then we worked on the research proposal together, and a lot of the traditional publishing houses said it was either too niche or they already had a feminist book on their roster, and so they
just
couldn't,
feminist.
Yeah, they couldn't add another one. So I was like, okay, fine. And after like 3 months on submission, we were like maybe debating kind of parking the idea for a bit and like maybe pursuing something else. And whilst that was happening, what is now obviously debunked, Unbound, which used to be like an independent crowdfunding publisher, reached out, and so they really wanted to publish the book, which was great. So I crowdfunded for a whole year. So the way that Unbound worked was that you basically signed a book deal, which is effectively like a traditional book deal, but relied on you raising an amount of money before the book came out. So I hadn't actually written anything yet, but they wanted me to kind of, I guess, it was kind of like crowdfunding where somebody would maybe like contribute £15 towards like pre-ordering a book effectively before the book.
Kind of like investors invest in it,
Yeah,
like
before
invest in
something
any
exists.
business. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
So,
and because I vaguely remember this time, just to jump in there, and because I don't know how close people are to publishing, but like as a concept within publishing, like how does that? Because obviously I'm also from publishing, but very different. Like, how does that feel as like a writer? Did that feel like more opportunity? Because it's like you didn't have to write it, but there's still a chance it will get made. Did it actually feel like it was harder for you? Like, yeah.
It did feel harder in the sense that I had like an additional, I guess, step, which was I had to really market a book on my own for basically a whole year to raise like a specific amount of money, which wasn't, it was like, I think it was something like £12,000 to produce a book, which is obviously, a lot of money to try and raise for something that doesn't really exist. So you're trying to, I had to like learn how to, I guess, like sell an idea and really market it and like build a social media profile so that people could find it. So yeah, it did take me about a year to crowdfund it, but I did. So then once it was crowdfunded, it became like a traditional, like, I guess, publishing process where I had a deadline, I delivered a manuscript, and all of those things happened. And then, they designed a cover, which is different to this one. I went through a legal read, like it was basically a finished product. And then in January last year, there was like a news article that said that Unbound was facing financial difficulty, which was the first that me and my agent had heard of this. So then, my agent Florence kind of started to like dig into kind of what was happening and tried to reach out to people. And I guess a couple of months later they went bankrupt the first time. They rebranded to Boundless, and then still were kind of saying like, oh no, we're also going to publish the book, and we've got investors coming in, blah blah blah. So up until about April, I still didn't really know what was going to happen. And then me and my agent, I think it was like May or June last year, decided to take back the book because we didn't really trust where it was going, which was great, because then 2 weeks later there was another announcement, which was that Boundless had gone bankrupt. Which, I'm not the only author that's been through this. There's so many authors, the author of The Good Immigrant, Nikesh Shukla, he's one of the authors as well. He's a big Unbound author. And there's so many people who are owed money, and I feel for them so much, and they're still trying to fight to get to get the money that they've been kind of, I guess, owed and never really seen the light of day. And then so then when I took my rights back, I kind of had accepted, it was a very sad time, I'd accepted that maybe this book wasn't actually ever going to come out, which is, you have like a finished product like sat on your computer and it's just never going to see the light of day. But then, Pluto came along, I think it was in August last year, and I signed with them, and it's been such a quick turnaround. It's been amazing. Like 6 months for like a drop-in project is a lot to ask of a publisher, because, they had to design a new cover, they went through a proofread, but they've managed, and it came out in March, and it's been amazing. I'm so glad it came out with them. They were kind of one of my wish list, which is so odd to think about at the beginning of the kind of submission process. I really wanted someone like, Pluto or Verso to be like the people to publish something like this. So to have Pluto, I guess, come back years later, and kind of pick it up has been, a strange full circle moment. But it's been an interesting publishing experience, from its inception to I guess now.
Like, what a journey, and the fact that it's here, and almost that in its own thing tells a bit of a story, and it's just a testament to your writing that the book has survived all of that, and it's here now.
Mad. It's still so surreal that she's here. Sometimes I look at it, I'm like, oh.
But amazing. So we're going to go into the second reading now.
I'm going to read from the end. White feminism is inherently harmful. Its focus on the experience of cisgendered white middle-class women means it's more caught up with changing the faces on banknotes, getting a rich white female director nominated at a film awards ceremony, and celebrating neoliberal and violent women simply because they achieved new successes in politics. It's so busy trying to get a seat at the table that it does not stop to think about what the table really represents. Is it worth carving out space and room that will ultimately oppress everybody else? But this capitalist and economic power is at the heart of white feminism. So them equal economic power to men is what gender equality looks like in a modern and progressive society. It is also why a casteral logic is so fitting for them. They put so much trust and confidence in the police, legal system, and ultimately the state, because these institutions will protect their positions of power. White feminism cannot even consider other forms of liberation because of this power, but also because a radical and abolitionist feminist future is perceived as unrealistic. This idea that a radical feminist future is unrealistic is one I've encountered many times over the years, and it is something I used to think about when I first started reading about police abolition, black feminism, and a world without capitalism. I found that I could not see what these futures would look like and how society would function without these structures in place. Yet not only would society function, but it would thrive. As soon as I realised that abolition does not mean just the absence of the police or the state as we know it, something clicked in my mind. Abolition is not simply the act of abolishing a system or structure, but also the act of replacing it with better alternatives that work for the majority and not just the minority. Our imaginations are powerful political tools that we can use to think up and dream of alternative ways of thinking, feeling and living. As a Muslim woman, I already use my imagination and my faith when I read about the angels, the jinn and the heavens, believing and knowing that these things are true, but without ever seeing or hearing them. A lot of the discussions in leftist and feminist spaces can be defeatist and lacking in hope, but this is why imagination plays such a huge and important role in the fight for social justice and bettering our world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so a few more questions. So in your book, you talk a bit about how Muslim women are often spoken about but not listened to. And there's this kind of stereotype that Muslim women maybe can't speak for themselves or just intrinsically oppressed. And so no one just bothers to ask. But in this age of everyone having a platform, everyone having a voice, even if they shouldn't, you know, everyone having a podcast. And it's so easy to raise awareness on these issues. Like, why do you think this is still happening specifically around the experiences of Muslim women?
Yeah, I think in the age of social media, it's interesting. Obviously, we all have a voice, but I think a lot more people are more likely to gain a profile, I think, if you come from, I guess, like an acceptable background. For example, I've been shadow banned so much on social media, and I'm sure many other people have, for posting about particular things, you know, if it's like Palestine or something that your algorithm doesn't particularly agree with. So I think that's a barrier in itself. But also, I guess, with like traditional media, there is still, I think, certain people from certain backgrounds, for example, you know, white, middle class, tend to be actually men in journalism especially, that still get access to those like halls of power and media and being able to shape narratives and being able to shape the biases of all these kind of different publications. So yeah, when it comes to traditional media, there's still so much, there are still certain people that have a voice and certain people that don't. Like, I can't remember what the statistic is for Muslim women in media, but it's something like 0.01%. It's a really, really low amount of people. And the people that are Muslim women that are in media don't tend to occupy like positions of power. They tend to be, you know, people at my, you know, mid-level or writers, people that don't have the power to kind of change things editorially or make those big decisions in-house. But yeah, I find social media interesting that everyone does have a voice, but then we still hear like certain voices. I think we're more likely to be served on the algorithm certain voices. So I do think the algorithm does come into play, and I'm still trying to get to grips with the algorithm, and I'm still trying to read about it, and I still don't really know how it's formed and what it does. But I feel like it shapes so many people's, I think, opinions and narratives. Because if you're seeing the same, I guess, kind of things every day, it does start to. I feel like you do start to absorb it, and it does alter like the way you think about certain things.
Absolutely, and like you say, there's just certain groups or voices or opinions that will just be hidden by the algorithm, so people may assume that no one even holds that opinion at all.
And it rewards rage, and it rewards this, like, you know, the clickbaity stuff. It's like, I have tried to like cultivate like a social media algorithm that is a kind of my, you know, which has its limitations, like we all exist in a bubble, but I still get served kind of far right content, which I'm like, how this has got through, I don't know, but it, you know, the algorithm rewards that kind of stuff because there's so much outrage in it, and it gets people watching and it gets clicks. So yeah, the algorithm is an insane thing that we've created.
Honestly. Okay, and then, yeah, I guess given the current climate and kind of things we've already spoken about, why is it so important that the book is out now? And it's interesting, obviously, the journey you've been on for it to now come out, you know, in this particular moment in time. You describe The Other Women as a book that you wish you had when you were younger. Oh, hold on, sorry. Let's focus on. Got a lot of questions. Let me start. Why is it important that the book has come out in this moment in time?
I think it's probably never been more important. I think Islamophobia, when I first thought about this, was already rife in the UK and in the Western world, and has only got worse in the 6 years since that kind of the thought process that I had. If anything, it's so much more rife now. In February we finally got a legal definition for Islamophobia, which has its pros and cons. Like, should a state define something when they also perpetrate the very thing that they're defining? But yeah, we actually now have a legal definition, which in 2026 we finally defined a form of racism that the hate crime statistics are there to be seen, and but they haven't really done much. The state hasn't really done much about it. But yeah, no, people have been, have said to me like, oh, it's so timely and relevant. But I think this book, whenever it would have come out, even if it came out, it's supposed to come out last summer, probably would have been, relevant then. And it's sad that every month that goes by, it becomes more and more relevant. But I'm so proud it's out now, and I'm hopeful that maybe it can contribute to like the conversations around
100%.
Islamophobia and the experiences of Muslim women, and the hate crimes that you hear about are just the horrific, and the hypervigilance that especially veiled Muslim women have to now kind of navigate. And I think about my mum, and I'm like, when she's going shopping or when she's doing, running her errands, and she's, very visible, what's running through her head, what's she having to do to kind of navigate those public settings where there's always that level of kind of risk and fear, which I think most women can also kind of relate to as well. But yeah, I think it's sad that in 2026 this is probably more relevant than it would have been in 2021.
Yeah, but at the same time, what is so important is that the book is here now. Like, it's something that people can pick up and read outside of what we're fed on social media, and actually this can only contribute to like helping kind of solve the problem.
I hope so.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
And then yeah, what I was going to say, which we kind of touched upon it. Ooh,
oh no, iPad.
My iPad. This is my baby, everyone. Yeah, it was you talking about the book being something you wish you had when you were younger. What do you feel was missing from conversations around feminism and Muslim women when you were growing up?
So much was missing. I think we were, when I did sociology at school, and we did a whole kind of, I think a whole semester / 3 months on a specific module, which was like gender studies. But I don't remember ever learning about black feminism, about Muslim women, about queer feminism. I don't remember learning about these intersectional experiences. I just remember a very default kind of, I guess, a default setting, which I guess speaks to like the education system and the curriculum. And I'm hopeful it's changing. Like, somebody said to me the other day that they're doing a university module on white feminism, which I never did. So it's amazing that in, I guess, like a decade or 15 years, that's starting to change, and that, I guess higher education is starting to kind of integrate that into their teachings. But yeah, I wish I had something like this when I was growing up, and I think it would have helped me to not only understand, I guess, my own personal experiences trying to navigate kind of being a Muslim in the UK, but also to know that actually, because I had internalized so much of the Islamophobia that people had kind of thrown at me, it would have helped to kind of unpick that and unlearn that a lot earlier than me kind of going, taking to the unlearning process that I went through at 2021, and being able to have something to kind of not debate people, because when you're 14 you're not going to debate people about really anything, and it's already such an awkward time, and you have to then navigate Islamophobia on top of it, and it's like, oh great. But I think it would have helped me have like the language and I guess the rhetoric to understand myself and my faith a bit more, and be able to maybe have those conversations as basic as they would have been at like 14, 15. So yeah, I'm hopeful that maybe this could be on a university syllabus, or that maybe it can be picked up by younger girls and give them the language and the systems of thinking that maybe they already know about, but want to kind of like, I guess, find the language for it, or like the validation for it.
Absolutely. And my final question, and then we'll open up to Q&A. Was there anything in the book, and it's only because I always get asked this from my book and the answer's loads, was there anything in the book that you didn't end up actually including in the end that you kind of wish you had, or like kind of some interesting findings that you had that didn't actually make it into the book?
I do love this question. So when I first started writing this book, reform didn't exist.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, that's how much
what a time.
I think Nigel Farage had just maybe like rebranded the Brexit Party. And so I wish I'd included more of, I guess I couldn't have, because already this book is outdated, but I wish the far right chapter could have included the rise of reform and like how reform has taken white feminist like language and used it to enforce their anti-Islam views, and how they then associate Muslims with migrants, and it's become interchangeable for them, and how they push forward this idea that Muslim men are rapists and they're coming to steal your women and your children, and that's a rhetoric that's very strong, and it's it's resonating with certain people. But that's not included in the book, because I think well, I finished writing this I think in late 2023, early 2024.
Wow.
And back then they had a presence, but they weren't like major compared to now, which is, you know, insane to think about, like 2 years ago and what they're like and what, you know, the popularity they have now. But I am hopeful in 2 years' time maybe it'll dip.
We can only hope.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Shahed.
you.
Amazing. Yeah, we'll open up to any questions anyone has, and I think I'll just repeat the question so
Oh yeah.
yeah, people can hear through the mic. Don't be shy. Yeah.
Oh, hello.
Can I say first of all thank you so much for writing this. I'm
Oh,
just
thank you.
so tired of my Muslim brothers and sisters getting persecuted every day. And these guys are the strong ones who are the activists and
Yeah,
in prison,
yeah.
not in prison. Where would you like to, there's two things, where would you like to see this book reach? So I've bought two. One's going to go to the Homerton Hospital where I used to work,
Oh,
to
thank
Weststaff
you.
Library. So where would you like it to reach? And the term Islamophobia, so I had a really interesting discussion with somebody after one of the marches who had a campaign who really didn't feel it was strong enough and it really needs to be anti-Muslim hate or something different.
Not a phobia.
So where do you want the book to go?
Yes.
And Islamophobia, is it adequate?
Fab. Okay.
I'll just
Roughly,
in
yeah.
case, yeah. So yeah, where do you hope the book can go? Where do you want to take it? And yeah, on the term Islamophobia, do you feel that that's accurate or strong enough?
Fab. Okay. For the first part, I would love it to go into libraries. I think, you know, I want our libraries to remain existent, and I used to love my library when I was a child. So to kind of go back to my local library and see it there would be amazing. But also from an accessibility point of view, you know, books have become a bit more expensive now. You know, they're like £13-14 for a paperback now. So to have it in the library for people to access for free, read it, put it back, that's amazing to me. And people have told me they found it in like in American libraries and Canadian libraries, so it's starting to get there, which is amazing. So I'm hoping, yeah, I'm going to try and do a big old push for them to be in libraries. And on the second part of the question about Islamophobia, I use this term Islamophobia because it's commonly used, I guess, to talk about anti-Muslim hatred, but I also don't like it as a term. I think, yeah, like you said, the phobia element makes it sound like an individual fear, and it makes it sound like it's validating, I guess, like a personal concern about a faith. And it kind of goes into like the freedom of speech debate that is had around, can you criticise Islam or like, you know, etc. So I don't love it as a term. I think maybe anti-Muslim hatred would work better. But I did decide to use it for this book because it's just, yeah, widely used in the UK, and I think as a state definition they've changed it now to anti-Muslim hostility, I think, which I mean I don't know where that's come from, but yeah, I agree, I don't think Islamophobia is accurate enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Great.
Absolutely great. And obviously, yeah, you can go get a book and Shahed will sign it. And oh,
Yes,
we have a question.
How do you deal with the online abuse that you've had since publishing this book? Like, how do you deal with it, like mental health wise and also sort of practically?
Okay, yeah, do you want to repeat?
Yeah, how do you deal with the online abuse that you've faced in general?
Yeah, it's not been great. I've had to put certain boundaries down with social media. So I've now said I'm not going to do like a no comment policy, so I won't reply to anything. There was a certain article that went like weirdly viral, and it must have been shared in a certain part of the internet because it attracted a wider range of like abuse and trolls and bots. But yeah, because I guess with promoting a book, you find yourself so online, and social media is such a powerful tool for like promoting events and promoting certain like articles and promoting the book itself and increasing sales. But I'm trying to kind of use social media as, I guess, like a work thing. So I try not to go in the evenings. I try not to look at it at the weekends, even though that is easier said than done. I've tried to put those boundaries down online just because I also have felt like you get into a spiral where like if I see the hateful comments, I will just continue to read them, and obviously it has an effect on you. I've also I'm trying to be more careful about this whole like collaboration feature, and obviously I think publications are more likely to use it now because they want to obviously increase their platform and like engage with your community online. But I'm trying to be, I guess, a bit more actively like thinking about that, like, oh, is this collab feature actually going to work for me, or is it going to open me up to, I don't know, comments, or is it worth my mental health and sacrificing that for, I don't know, like 10 new followers or somebody ordering the book. So yeah, I think the online thing I'm still trying to like navigate. Even as, you know, as a journalist, I think it's hard to navigate that space, and we seem to be moving into like a journalism, like content creator, like industry as well, which I have my own opinions about. But yeah, no, it has been hard, but I've been on holiday this week, so that's really helped.
Love that. Great.
I also like to say that it's great, it's causing a lot of discomfort.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
You know, you've challenged something like what appealed to me, what attracted me to your book is how white feminism,
Oh, amazing.
because that's not talked about much,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not addressed much, that's not decolonized much. Because harm Muslim women, as a Muslim woman, that's very familiar for me. I know that, so
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
just wanted to, you know, give a reflection on this. So I'm glad your book has caused discomfort.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because that's the whole point.
Yeah,
That
and
is a very good point.
It's such a
yeah.
good point. It means that people are actually, you know, engaging in a debate and they're talking about it, and also it's that, you know, the book and I guess the stuff that I kind of share on social media is reaching them, which, you know, the algorithm doesn't promote these kind of things.
But that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Is we want to dismantle. We want to interrogate.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I think the title is very important. But what made me buy your book, which I haven't finished reading yet, yes, is how white feminism, because that's not, you know, white feminism, white supremacy, white fragility, you know, whiteness as a construct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It needs to be interrogated.
Yeah,
It needs to
absolutely.
be the headline.
Yeah. Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. I'm so glad you're reading it as well.
Yes, it's my pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
And I recommended it to so many of my trainees as well.
Oh, amazing.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So kind.
Amazing. Well, on that note, I
That's
think
such a
we'll
nice way
end
to
it there.
end it.
Yeah, and I think that was an amazing point around you're doing the right thing if you're causing that disruption.
Yeah,
right
it's a good
now.
way of framing it. I'm
Yeah.
going to try and remember that when I'm sat reading comments.
Yeah, maybe still don't read them, but just know that they might still be happening.
This is it, yeah,
but
yeah.
that is not the point, but that's how you know
Yeah.
you're challenging the structures that we live in.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
thank you so much, and
Oh,
thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Zainab, for stepping in last minute.
Absolutely, guys. This was not what I was supposed to do today, but
She found out not 3 hours ago.
yeah, I'm very happy to have stepped in and made sure that the event kept happening because it's so important what you've
thank
written
you.
about, and I always want to support other writers as well. But yeah, thank you for having me as well. This was really
Thank you.
Thank you.